Hi, Dorothy. Hi, John. Oh, he's not connected quite yet. Hi, Betsy.
Hey, Lynn. I wonder what happened to my profile picture in Zoom? Seems to be gone.
Oh, yeah. I think it was gone last time you were with us, too. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Could be Schneider Electric, owner of this computer and cleaner up of things they want to, you know?
Oh.
I wouldn't think they would do that, but you never know. Or else I got a new version or something.
Oh, maybe. I don't
Mess
think I've
around.
updated in a while, and I probably need to do that. Start Zoom. Hi, Catherine.
Hello.
See here.
Hey, Dick.
Hi, Dick.
Greetings. I just unmuted myself.
Let's see.
Ah.
Mhm.
That was the deal. I wasn't signed into Zoom, just so you know.
Oh.
Isn't that
Huh.
interesting? It would launch the meeting, but of course, I have an account. And
Oh, there
everything.
you are.
Yeah. So there you go. Fixed it.
Hi, Danny. Great. A couple more folks we're waiting for. Karen's here. Mary's here. Where's our team, guys? Craig's probably out walking the dog in the snow somewhere.
You need me to text somebody or let's see.
Well, we just heard from Candace today, right, with the ops team report. So I know
Yep.
she said I'll see you later tonight. So she'll be here.
And Daryl's not going to be here.
Oh, that's right. Darryl won't.
Because
Right.
I'm taking sliver notes or
right.
splinters or whatever. I think you called it splinter sick. It was very funny.
It's, it's a paraphasia. That's the field I work in.
Yeah.
Let's see. We're waiting for Candace then and Craig. It's early. How's everyone?
Doing well, following the news out of Eastern Europe.
Is it not looking good? It's not looking good. Huh?
It is not looking good.
Yeah. Scary.
But you can probably understand them, Dick, can't you, in their original language?
Well, I understand Russian. Ukrainian is it's close, sort of probably like French and Italian or Spanish and Portuguese.
Not all
But,
that close.
I can more or less read Ukrainian,
Uh-huh.
but
Oh.
Yeah.
Hi, Candace. Well, we'll hang out just another minute or two for Craig, and then we'll text him. I don't have any messages from him that I know of. Let me just peek my email real quick.
Quick note, I was in the Crimea just before the Russians took over, so this is really interesting to me to watch what's going on.
did you say you were in the Crimea?
Yes,
Where in the Crimea?
Sevastopol.
Wow.
Is that how you
Yeah,
say that,
okay.
Dan? Sebastopol? I didn't know. Huh. It's on the Black Sea, right?
Sevastopol is the way the Russians say it. We
Uh-huh.
always
Yeah.
said Sevastopol.
Right. That's what,
Right.
yeah, exactly. So
They say it's Sevastopol.
have you noticed they're saying Kyiv now instead of Kiev?
Yeah,
too?
That's the Ukrainian pronunciation.
Ah, instead of the Russian?
Mhm.
Dick, is that it?
Yeah.
Or
Yes. Yeah. And
So
in
it's a-
Russian, it's written with the E letter, the E, and in Ukrainian, it turned into an E sound, an I sound. Kyiv.
That's a
Uh-huh, so
better,
it's-
that's a better explanation than just the American version.
well, yeah, so it's a political statement, the way they're pronouncing it now, in a way, we're siding with the Ukrainians.
It
We're
is.
going to pronounce it.
is.
We're going to pronounce
Yeah.
it like they do.
Hmm.
So all of those cities, like there's a city in Western Ukraine, which is appearing in the news, and depending on which country holds the territory, it's either called Lviv, that's the Ukrainians, or Lvov, that would be the Russians, or Lvov, that would be the Poles. And it's been in because it's right on the border. It's been in each of those countries
Right.
at different times. They'll pass in.
Fascinating. Yeah.
As with Alsace-Lorraine, whoever won the last war.
That's it. That's it.
Well, guys.
I did send a text to Craig. And
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
You're
just
hard.
asked him if he was going to join the board meeting.
Tom's
Hey.
good at that. Tom has reminded me of meetings that I was in the process of missing.
Way to go, Tom.
Yeah.
My last email or text to Craig is, hi, Craig, are you coming to the board workshop this evening? Which was October. That was a long time ago. Goofy guy. Well, we have a quorum, right? We have 5 of
Yeah,
them.
we do.
So maybe let's go ahead and get started, and hopefully Craig will join us. I think he's probably pretty clear about the beginnings of the meeting anyway. So we'll call the meeting to order at 6:07. Dorothy, and any changes to the agenda that anybody that needs to come to our attention? I don't think so. Okay. So we'll go on to amend or approve the minutes from January. Any changes from that anybody noticed? They looked great, Dorothy.
Yeah, good job.
Okay, so can we just go ahead and vote to approve that by consensus then? I didn't think there were any changes that needed to be made. Dorothy, it's such a hard job to keep up with all of that, and I can't tell you how appreciative I am. So, and then how quick she
Here.
is to get the draft to me, and then I just hold on to it because I don't want it to get lost in your email boxes, guys. But if you want it sooner, Dorothy usually has it to me within a day or two. And then I just wait till we're sending out the next agenda before I send it to you guys and give you some time to look at that. So
Just
super.
to help you with, going through this, if you ask for corrections, and if there are none, you can just declare they're approved. You don't need votes on stuff like that.
Oh, perfect. Thanks. Thanks, advisor.
Yeah.
Advisor Tom. So, all right, we are declaring those approved. All right, Dick Steele has agreed to give us some opening words this evening. So, Dick.
Okay, thank you. And I am offering a quotation from the Chinese philosopher, ancient Chinese philosopher and writer Lao Tzu. And he said, "I have three precious things which I hold fast and prize. The first is gentleness. The second is frugality. The third is humility, which keeps me from puffing myself before others. Be gentle, and you can be bold. Be frugal, and you can be liberal. Avoid putting yourself before others, and you can become a leader among men."
Wow.
That's very nice. Thank you, Dick.
I like those.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, we are going to move on to the very next thing, and we're way ahead of schedule. So this will give us lots of time for important discussion we're having tonight. So Candace with the operations team report, also very important. Thank you.
Well, I just wanted to notice there's some changes that Rebecca found some errors in the one that I sent out this afternoon. So I don't know if you got her email or it just came directly to me. Anyway, I'll point them out. Okay, the ops team has conducted a preliminary budget review in preparation for the Budget Summit 1 to be held on Wednesday, March 2nd from 1 to 3 p.m. Rebecca has been working with her bookkeeper and members of the ops team to do the initial budget work, compiling operational expenses and cost of living pay increases for the coming year. It is requested that there be some attendance from the Board of Trustees at this Budget Summit 1 on March 2nd. It's requested that the board find a new member for the finance team and make a formal appointment as Wayne Atwood is resigning from the team. Current members are Rebecca Adams, Craig Aldworth, Donna Borden, and Bill Markle. The ops team continues its annual review of the strategic plan and has noted that many of the items under the outreach section has been completed or have been completed. For example, streaming outreach, and some are ongoing. For example, in-person outreach to smaller UU communities in the Northwest. The current strategic plan extends into 2022. I had written 2023, but it's actually this year. So at some point during the next year, the board will be expected to present a new 5-year strategic plan to the congregation that would extend through 2027. Our online viewership has been growing, and several times in the past month, the viewership for the first service has been greater than that for the second service. Upcoming church events in March include the Partner Church Sunday and the New Member Sunday, when newly joined members will be celebrated and introduced to the congregation. And lastly, the following church teams have been reestablished in the past month. And so it's the generosity team, adult programming, and the membership team. So people on the generosity team are Linda Green, Jean Larson, Sue Sterritz, and Craig Aldworth. Adult programming is Marina Ladich, Julianne Morse, Dan Gore, and Gordon Diddens. And the membership team, Linda Green, Sonny Cook, Jean Larson, Sue Sterritz, and Michelle Atwood.
Nice. Nice. Well, that's great to have those new teams for, not new teams, but refurbished teams back in place and back in play. So that's wonderful. Thanks to those of you who are here that are on those teams now. Linda Green, I heard your name a couple of times there, and amongst the other things that you do. Great. Thanks. Thanks, Candace. And should we, oh, yes. Yes, Jean.
Jean, yes. Rebecca did not work with the ops team to figure out the budget, as Candace reported. And Julianne Morse is not on the adult programming team.
Oh, that's a change from what I have. I read
Right.
in the minutes. Okay.
Okay. Does Rebecca want us, Candace, do you know if she wants us to just let her know whether or not we can attend that budget
Yeah, I
summit?
think that would be helpful to let her know
Okay.
who of us can go.
I know that I can go. I think I just looked at my calendar today when I got your report, so I'm available to that. Is there anybody else? I know
Yeah,
Craig will be
I'm gonna
there,
go.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else that is on the board planning on attending, and I'll just send Rebecca an email of our names. Kind of a
Maybe.
holiday. You're a maybe? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe too. Tell me what time it was again, Candace?
March 2nd, that's a Wednesday from 1 to 3 in the afternoon.
Okay.
So you're a maybe, Betsy?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, Tom?
Yeah, just a point, because it needs to be in the minutes, hopefully clarified, so you don't end up with corrections in the minutes next month. You have a report that the ops team worked with a budget, and you have a comment from a member of the ops team that said that Rebecca didn't work with the ops team. I think you need to clarify that so the minutes don't have to be changed or corrected next month.
Yeah, I'll call Rebecca tomorrow.
Okay. So Lynn and Craig for sure. And the others maybe. Okay. Great. So next is my report, and guess what I'm going to talk about? I'm going to talk about bylaws. So as you all know, probably all of you here know that the board has been working weekly on the bylaws revision. And we are now done with our preliminary proposal, and that has all been sent out to the congregation. And we are in the midst of our series of four Sundays where we will be available to congregants, members in the back of the sanctuary between services to discuss particular articles as noted in our flyer, our Q&A flyer. And on the same Sunday, next one is next Sunday, on February 27th, where we will also have a Zoom meeting from 5 to 6 p.m. for anybody who's not able to come in person to church to bring to our attention any concerns of, we'll be working on Articles 4 through 8 at our next between services and Zoom meeting time. The last time that we met with, we were available, so our last one was February 13th between services, and we had 8 members come speak to us, mostly to, well, we got a lot of appreciation, which was quite lovely. Lots of people just making comments and, or picking up copies, printed copies of things. And we had 2 congregants, Linda Green and Judy Gammon, who gave us some recommendations and suggestions for changes that they would like to see. And then the board met on the following Monday, so February 14th, Valentine's Day, we spent together. We're getting used to each other by now, so we don't even mind if we hang out on Valentine's Day together. So we addressed both of those concerns from Linda Green and from Judy Gammon, and that document was then sent to Rebecca to be placed in the sun. And so members can see the changes that we made based on the member feedback that we got and suggestions. So that is I think the update for the bylaws things. I just want to always remind people that our meeting where we will need a quorum is April 24th. And that's a Sunday, and it will be after the second service, where we will hopefully then have worked our way through all of the articles, and people will feel pretty heard and addressed the concerns. And we are still hoping that we will be able to have an up or down vote on those bylaws at that time, at that meeting. So that's our goal. Let's see, the next thing, oh my goodness, I must say this, and this must be in the minutes. It should be on a poster board somewhere. I just wanted to really acknowledge the work done by Julie and Jerry Jose in caring for the belongings of Doris Shin after Doris passed away. Jerry and Julie Jose sort of organized a crew of people that included Darrell Vanderlinden and Shirley Carlson, and also Joyce Robinson, who used to be a member of our church, I believe. I'm not sure. I believe she might be a member of INUUC now. But at any rate, they all worked together to clear out the storage unit of Doris Shin and all of her belongings that were sort of left to the church. And Julie and Jerry really decided that they would take this on. I don't know that they knew what they were getting into, but they must have had some idea. At any rate, Jerry kept an incredible accounting of where those belongings went, what was donated where, how many boxes, how many pieces of furniture, how many items of all kinds of things that you can imagine. I just can't thank them enough for the amount of time and effort that must have gone into that, and for the detailed record keeping of things that were donated to people and places in need, and then sold to other people and other organizations also. And they did raise over $1,000 that came to the church. So it's just an incredible amount of work that really should be acknowledged, and time and effort. So I really wanted to make sure to talk about that this evening. So kudos. That's a lot of work. I think that's it for my president's report. So the next thing on the agenda is actually from last month's, pretty much a response from last month's discussion and the letter that the Board of Trustees sent to Reverend Susan Frederick Gray from the UUA. And so I'm not sure if you all want me to read. We did receive a response, so The letter was sent, I think, the very next day by email, and then sent also via a hard copy via the post office. And we heard from her within a week, so, or maybe just a little bit over a week. I'm happy to read her response if you weren't able to do that. We did put it into the Sun, or I'm not sure exactly what the board would like to do if we.
It's not terribly long, as I recall.
What we're going to do next, if anything, or I'd like to hear from you. Oops, sorry, I think I must have frozen up. My internet went
I think
unstable.
it was good to hear it.
You'd like to hear it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I would like to hear it too. Yep.
okay. Would you like me to share the screen too, so I can read it aloud while you read it too? I have it.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So she says, "Dear UUC Board of Trustees, I hold you all in care. While I cannot fully imagine all the difficulty and heartbreak of the circumstances you have navigated over the last few years, both the wider social realities of these times and the particularities of your congregation's experiences, I have thought of you often and held you in my heart. Congregational conflict is incredibly painful, particularly when it rises to the level of splitting or significant departures. Because our spiritual communities are a source of such meaning and belonging in our lives, as well as close friendships, the hurt and sense of loss that occurs in these ruptures is significant. I hear in your letter both your frustration with the support you have received from the UUA and your desire for more direct outreach from the UUA. I have included your congregation contacts, the Reverend Carlton Elliott Smith and Dr. Melissa James of the Pacific Western region on this email. Would you like for them to be in contact with you regarding direct services and support to your congregations? You can reach out to them directly at any time. The recent APF mailing should be one among many regular communications you receive from the UUA and my office. We regularly communicate with congregational ministers, religious educators, musicians, administrators, and congregational presidents and treasurers. If your leadership is not receiving these outreaches, please make sure your information is up to date through the UUA website contact information. I understand you have disagreements about the actions of the UUA and the Ministerial Fellowship Committee with respect to your minister, the Reverend Dr. Todd Eckloff. Following our established code of ethics, Dr. Eckloff's refusal to participate in the review of an ethical complaint brought against him led to his removal from fellowship. These rules are in place for the well-being of our ministry and the long-term benefit of our congregations and religious association. I understand you are in discernment about your support of the UUA through the annual program fund. We do not view APF as a transactional or fee-for-service system. The UUA exists because of the covenant our congregations make to one another to ensure that there is a larger network of support. We recognize that the amount of support any congregation needs varies over its history. Your gifts through APF mean that a UU congregation that you'll likely never visit, filled with UUs you may never meet, is getting support during ministerial transition, or with starting their first ever RE program, or getting support in the wake of a disaster, or growing depth in their justice work. Our mission to equip congregations for vital ministry, train and support leaders, both lay and professional, and to advance UU values in the world remains core to all we do. I remain proud of the work of the UUA, whether it was the amazing work of UU the Vote that reached over 3 million people, or early and quick response to the pandemic, or the ongoing transformative work of Our Whole Lives comprehensive sexuality curriculum in the lives of young people in congregations across the association. If you have more specific questions about APF, please be in touch with our Congregational Giving Director, the Reverend Vale Weller. I have also included her on this email. Yours in care, Susan.
Well, I have a question. They say there was an ethical complaint. I'd like to know what ethical transgression that Reverend Eckloff did. What are the facts? What did he write that was unethical? What did he say that was unethical? What was it? That's what I would like our response to be to Susan Gray.
Well, that's the ethical the event that comment is being made about is in regards to the Loretta complaint against him.
What's the Loretta complaint?
The Loretta complaint is the parts of his book that were related to the happenings that occurred at a Loretta conference, and the remarks mainly from it's so clear in the Gadfly affair. I'm not sure if you've had an opportunity to read Todd's book about the Gadfly affair.
I read both of Todd's books.
Okay.
What I don't understand is what explicitly he wrote that is unethical. I just don't understand that.
No one has ever answered that question because
And that's what I think. That's what I think our response should request from Susan. Before she calls somebody unethical, what is the evidence? What did he do that's unethical? That's what I want from her.
I think I understand the answer to that question from their perspective, which is that what they're calling unethical is that they essentially summoned him to be in conversation with them about what they were upset about. And his refusal to participate in that is the thing that they called unethical, not what he'd said before, which they had complaints about. The unethical thing that he did in their mind is refusing to be in conversation with them, which quite obviously was they're trying to wrap him on the knuckles and say, you are wrong. And he wasn't wanting to go through that without some other folks with him, so that he wasn't just, kind of alone being berated for his behavior of speaking his free mind.
well, I think there was even more than not wanting to be alone. I think he was wanting certainly to understand exactly what it was that was offensive, which is what Craig is asking. And also they were not just wanting to wrap him on the knuckles. They wanted, it was almost like a little re-education statement. Here's what you must do. You must apologize to these people. You must renounce your sins, basically. I mean, there was literally a written list of things that he had to do based on things that they had determined without there was just no evidence of anything. So it was a pretty wise decision, I think, on Todd's part. But I think we're asking for something they will not be able to give us, Craig. And because no one
that's
has.
fine. That's fine. I'm just saying that's what our response should be to her is you keep saying there was a ethical complaint against our minister. Please provide the facts. What did he write? What did he say? What deed did he do? Please provide the background information. We are ignorant of this. Please provide that. And we know that you, I would also like to add, but I'm not going to say, I'd say we'd also like to be sure that you are not slandering somebody with unsubstantiated charges. Sincerely. That, I think we should respond to them. And I know they're saying, well, he was actually dismissed because he wouldn't talk to us. But they can't keep saying this ethical shit. I want them to, what is the proof? What did he do? We need to respond and keep responding. Give us the details. What is the ethical charge? Because they've listed him as an ethical breach. If all they can come up with is that they didn't go to his kangaroo court, that's one thing, but they have to identify it. They can't just use this broad, slanderous term. And that's what our response should be. Provide the detail. What is it? What page in his book? Was it his action that he went to the GA assembly and he dared to speak his mind about criticizing the UUA? What was it? Get it out on the table. You cannot just sit there and smear somebody with this word unethical unless you identify what it is. And that's what we should respond. Just specifically about that.
I do think that Catherine put her finger on something which is important, which is that sort of like the initial response is, there were people who stepped forward and said, I've been harmed by what I see in this book. That's never been addressed, and you'd have to track down those people in order to identify what particular harm they felt.
No, we don't have to track down. They do. We need to know what did he do that was unethical. They have to provide that.
But what I was going to say is that they acted to call Todd, and Todd did not respond, given the fact, or did not concur with their stance that in the absence of clarity of what the harm was. And so they then took the secondary thing that you're not responding to us as being the unethical part of the behavior.
Well, that's what they have to identify. They have to say, well, he actually wasn't, there's nothing unethical that he did, but we view it as unethical that he didn't come to Jesus with our investigative team. I mean, and if that's what unethical is, then they can name it that. But they have to name, what is it? What is the unethical action? Is it the petty little bureaucratic, didn't follow procedures? Or is he a child molester? Did he, cheat on his wife? What is it? And that's the thing. That's the thing in all of this that really gets me, is that they get to keep calling him unethical, and there's absolutely no proof whatsoever about anything that he wrote, said, or did that was unethical. They have to define it. They can't get away with this.
It's interesting, in support of what Craig is saying. There's an interesting aspect about this whole board possibly inquiring, because I've been trading emails with the Saltwater UU Church in Des Moines, Washington, and 2 or 3 or 4 of those individuals have asked the very same question, Craig, and gotten responses back, but none of the responses include an answer to the questions that they ask, which are very much the same as you ask. The only thing that they get back from that is the boilerplate thing that he refused to engage, apparently ignoring the fact that he and Reverend Rick sent them some over 20 questions, and they did engage because they asked questions and there were no responses to their 20 questions. And that was part of the reason why Todd says to hell with you.
So exactly. Karen happens to be here. Karen Dornsteele, investigative journalist, which is exactly what this sort of process, Craig, and where all of your ire is coming from, is that the truth is not being served, and they are, not answering the questions. They're standing on process, whatever it is, because it's like Catherine described it. He didn't respond to our well laid out, well understood rules that you come to these covenants, the kangaroo court, as you say, whatever. I mean, and so technically they're right. They had the rules, they have these things. Wait,
Yeah,
wait,
but
wait. So anyway,
They
I was
just
just
need to
gonna ask,
define, they need to define what that ethical thing is. That's,
well, I mean, they kind of said, we have these rules, you didn't come, so therefore you're in
No,
violation, and that's an
no.
ethical violation.
no, they've never linked what is unethical to that little bureaucratic process deal.
Well,
They
perhaps
haven't
not,
said
but
that.
getting
They've
them
let
to
it
say
float.
it is an entire industry of investigative journalism, you know, how do you do that, Karen? How do we get them to, how do you
No,
get them to say
I'm
what you
not
want them
saying-
to?
I'm not saying that
I
they
don't-
should. I'm saying that our position as the board is that we should demand that information.
Yeah.
I have
Shouldn't
a-
let them gloss it over. We need to say, if you know, if you're going to be throwing around this term unethical, give us the information because we're ignorant of it.
Hmm.
We've read the books, we've known him for a long time, and we have never seen anything unethical. Please inform us. This is your chance. You can win over this congregation if you provide the details.
Is that the carrot?
No.
Yeah, win us
No,
over.
wouldn't put it
We
that
want
way.
to come back to the fold. We
Yeah.
missed the UUA. We want to come back. Just give us.
Well, we haven't left.
information.
We haven't
do it.
left.
Yeah,
do it
we're still
now
there.
while he's- Do it now while he's on
Thank you.
sabbatical.
To their
President.
chagrin, we're still there.
Right.
No, do
Karen,
it now.
I-
He's on
let's-
sabbatical and he can't defend himself. So do it now, quickly.
Oh,
Get it-
dear.
Get it over to us.
Told you guys way back when that Greg was a fighter.
Yeah. Let's hear what Karen
Well,
said.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the third kind of drumbeat of this process from them is that they sent, it was several months ago now, but didn't they send Todd a letter or an email about actually they were going to post his so-called status as being disbarred, unethical
Yes.
on some webs. Did they ever do that? Did they post that on the UUA website or anywhere? I mean, has anything been put down and distributed beyond which we are the things we already know about?
I have never seen it. I did go looking for that, Karen, because it's included in our letter to them. That was their words that that we received from the Ministerial Fellowship Committee, actually, that the UUA would be labeling him, for lack of a better term, as unethical and unfit for ministry, according to them. And I don't know, and posting that somewhere on their website, but I have not seen that. And I did go look for it, but there's not a place that I could find that lists unethical and unfit people. So
Yeah.
I don't know how that works.
Well, did you look at the UUMA website or just the UUA website? Because I think if you ask the questions that Craig wants to ask, which are very valid questions, she's just going to defer you to the UUMA and the Fellowship Certification Committee and say, that's their business. You know, I
But
think
that wasn't what the Ministerial Fellowship Committee said. They said the UUA, not the UUMA.
Okay.
Yeah, which is curious because as Tom suggests, the logical place for it to take place would be the UUMA. And yet it looks as though the UUMA is hesitant to move forward with it.
Well, yeah, I just keep emphasizing, we need to respond to the letter and we need to, the one point, we need to have their information. We need to have them connect the dots. You just can't smear somebody and get away with that. They have to tell us what he did that was unethical. And
So as I understand
Or
it,
what? Or what?
yeah,
I
as
or
I-
we can say that they have nothing. Then we can broadcast to everybody that we asked for the specific information and they were vague about it, so that anything they post in the future is empty content, is slander, is a smear job. That is our job.
One thing that we could do, Todd and Rick submitted a list of 20 questions. We could just resubmit that list of 20 questions over the imprimatur of the board.
And the UUA will just say, well, that sounds like a fun game. Yeah, let's play 20 questions. Sorry. It was,
In other
Well,
words, they won't
misguided
answer, Catherine? Is that what you're saying?
pardon me?
In other words, they won't answer?
No, I'm making a bitter, humorous joke about the game 20 questions that you play in the car when you're
Mhm.
bored and you're supposed to be guessing whether animal, vegetable, or mineral.
Yeah.
It was a bitter, sarcastic joke. I'm sorry.
No,
But
no,
go,
no.
but going forward, we have to ask the question, and if we get no response, that is proof right there. If they cannot provide anything that he did unethically, any evidence of it, then they're just slandering him.
But Craig, they have the bully pulpit. We don't have a bully pulpit. We don't have a way to contact all the people that they're contacting. How
Yeah,
would this
no,
come
we
out?
have a way to contact. We have a way. If that is the response and there is no evidence, then certainly I can stop by and visit quite a few churches in Washington State so that they see what the actual evidence is. I'm a Unitarian. I can go to any Unitarian church in the Northwest, and I hold my head high. And I think we should. And to allow our minister to be slandered like that is ridiculous.
I think the
And
question,
if we ask these questions and there is no answer, right there, that is information that every other Unitarian in the Northwest should know. And we should tell them. We just can't let the UUA with inertia get away with just slandering Eckloff. That it, you know.
I think maybe I think one way we could address it is by prefacing it by saying, we want a detailed list of the specific behaviors that you are defining as unethical. The reason we want to know that is that our idea as a congregation of what is unethical and what you are calling unethical, there may be some strong disagreement about that. And we want to make that perfectly clear. What is it that you are defining as unethical?
Yeah, because if it is that he broke rule, 22 subsection 3, well, shit, they broke all kinds of rules with their treatment of us. If that's unethical, then they're certainly guilty of that. And we need to know so that other denominations, other churches can understand the position that we're in. We just, it's
Just
our
think we have to be
duty
super
as a church.
cautious about, I'm just worried about getting into yeah, maybe he did that, but you did this, and
No, I don't want that. I just want them to have a chance. We have to ask the question and they have to respond or not. Not responding is also an answer. And we have to have that on file. And then we can hold our head high to any other church in the Northwest. And we're very close to some. For example, there's one also in this town.
Well,
And,
I think we already are holding our heads high. I mean, I don't think anybody
No,
is not.
well, no, we're letting the UUA through inertia get away with this slander that Todd Eckloff is unethical. We have to press the point.
Okay.
And the answer to this letter is the perfect opportunity.
Okay, so back to Susan Frederick Gray. Is that what you're saying, Craig?
Yes.
A response back
Please,
to her.
please provide the instances of unethical behavior. And if it is that he broke the procedures of the, then that's fine. Then that is what they call unethical. I was a Unitarian back in the 60s, a Unitarian kid. I went to a Unitarian summer camp. Wife swapping was not unethical. 40-year-olds hitting on 16-year-olds was not unethical.
Wow.
Everybody getting stoned and taking acid was not unethical.
Is that why you're a Unitarian, Craig?
So things, ethics is very relative to the point. So I think we should find out what they are defining as unethical. I am sure that Todd did not knowingly commit any harm to anybody. And so I need to see the evidence.
His violation of their procedural norms.
Yeah.
Well, you're probably right, but it needs to be put in writing, because right now it's just assumed he was unethical, and that can range from all kinds of
Well, they
things.
say it.
I have a copy of the 2010 bylaws that were in effect, UUMA bylaws that were in effect at that time. And I looked at them and wrote a little treatise on them and sent it to them, that all the things that they violated with regard to procedures of a complaint filed against a minister by other ministers. They didn't go along with any of their own procedures. I pointed that out, and I later learned that other people pointed that out. So, you know, they've got dirt on their own front door also.
Yeah, we don't need to bring that out. Did you get a response, Tom, from that?
No, of course not.
Yeah, of course not.
What,
No,
how
they're
did
not
they,
gonna.
how did they respond?
But if we just asked the question, give us the evidence of unethical, and no response is a response. It's a very valid response.
That's
And
true.
it's a good response. It makes Todd look very good. And
Okay,
I would
so
love to have that information before I go down to Portland and go to the UU church. I would just love to have that information.
Oh.
And I would not hold it private at all. I mean,
Well, you can't do any of this without Todd's permission, because you are talking about Todd.
no, I'm talking about the reputation of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane.
yeah, and I think, you know, if we're responding to a letter, Todd's already aware that we sent a letter. He knows about the letter, and I mean, I don't know if he knows about the response to the letter, but I mean, I think that the board has a right to continue in this discussion, whether or not Todd is on sabbatical or not, or knows that we're still responding. So, so Craig, I am happy to start something, but you know, it takes me a very long time to write. Would you like to start it? And,
yeah, it's a very short letter.
Okay.
I would thank her for responding to us.
Yeah.
And I would state that we wish to get back with the UUA in good standing as a thing. The only thing is that we just have a problem with this unethical characterization of our minister, and we'd like the evidence. We're ignorant.
well,
we are actually ignorant. I want what is the evidence, and we will come back to the fold.
I would say that we have more than just that one thing. We have the fact that they didn't consult with us as their bylaws require, you know, in the founding of the INUUC. They have not been in touch with.
I wouldn't bring.
I mean,
that
we
up
haven't.
at all.
There's a litany of things.
No,
we already did.
So I would avoid the verbiage that there's only this one thing.
No, I think the letter should just be, what is this unethical behavior of Todd? Please define. If it's something he said, provide what he said and when he said it, where he said it. If it's something he wrote, what is it? Is it something he did to somebody else? Or was there harm to the congregation? Who did he directly harm in the congregation?
Okay.
Well,
so,
when did it happen? What?
Okay.
What is it that's unethical?
Craig, I'm
That
going to
needs
ask,
be-
because I want to start moving us towards the next thing on our agenda, which is really important, and I know it's going to take some time. So if you will start that letter and send it
Okay.
around to the board, and we will do the same thing we did, and edit and change and figure out how we want to do that, and then we'll come back and figure out how we move forward with sending that next letter, a response.
Okay.
Okay.
Be happy to do it. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Craig. All right, guys. Who that is a big deal, that darn UUA. Okay. So the next thing on our agenda tonight, we have an amazing report put together from the endowment team. And Karen Doran-Steele is here, and I believe that Mary Giannini is here. She was here. There she is. And so they're going to present this report and recommendations to the board about our endowment fund. So Karen and Mary.
Well, I trust you've all received copies of the report. That's correct? Yeah. Okay, so I don't have to like read the whole thing, but I'm going to highlight the important parts of it for you. And Mary is going to jump in on all the legal ramifications of what what we've recommended to you. So we spent 8 months on this review and research process. And on February 10th, we voted unanimously at our monthly meeting to recommend a transfer of our endowment funds away from the UUCEF in Boston, the Unitarian Universalist Common Endowment Fund, as it's called, to the Seattle Foundation in Seattle, obviously. And we made this recommendation not because of the financial performance of our Unitarian fund, because it's been pretty good, but because of all the other issues in the relationship now between the UUA and our church, and issues which from this discussion are still ongoing and have not grown any less troubling than they were a couple of years ago. And in summary, what we are concerned about is several things: the UUCEF's current legal structure, its performance, its community investment priorities, and its control, long-term control over our endowment funds. And as you know from a previous time when we reported to you that that the UUCEF was spun out of the UUA in 2012. It was turned into a separate LLC with individual churches sharing liability for fund losses as UUCEF members. And the new structure, Mary talked to you about this at a former board meeting, essentially shifted liability for the fund from the UUA to its member churches. And our board of trustees in late 2011 signed a new operating agreement that kicked in January of 2012 that endorsed this relationship in this arrangement. But that arrangement also stipulates that if our church ever dissolves, our endowment funds will be owned outright by the UUA. And that's because the UUA is the manager of the UUCEF funds. And it's through that management agreement that they could actually take over all the funds of any church that dissolves. So that's kind of a nutshell description of the legal agreement. And in terms of the fund performance, as of this month, our fund has $763,384 in it. And it has, in our analysis, outperformed the market in the past recent years, but it has enabled our church to take regular distributions of 4 to 4.5% for a total of over $62,000 contributed to church operating funds. And we are charged a 1% annual fee that helps pay for a lot of the UUCEF private investment managers and a host of UUA administrative expenses, including the entire salary of the UUA treasurer in Boston and his administrative staff. And we have been following their investment priorities. We've been going to the quarterly meetings of the UUCEF now for the past 6 months. And in 2020, the UUA board voted to increase its community investing allocation recommendations from 1% to 5% of the $266 million that they had in the fund. But even though the UUCEF has these quarterly meetings, there's been very little direct involvement of the individual churches that own the fund. And the individual churches within the UUA own about half the fund. And very few of the projects which they have prioritized are located on the West Coast, which also gives us some concerns and some questions that if we had our money in another fund, maybe we could prioritize it ourselves for more social justice projects in our region. So, those are the fiscal and managerial concerns. But we also, they're playing out against all these recent troubled relations we have with the UUA after the flap over the gadfly papers and the UUA's continuing criticism of Todd's leadership. As you know, we're still contributing our dues and we're still members in good standing of the UUA, but during the year 2020, things got even stranger. And we found out when we ran the UUnite slate that elected you all to your current positions, we obtained emails from UUA that showed that they were working with our prior board to try to oust Todd. And that was something that was not revealed to our congregation. And the prior board had so many meetings in executive session that we never found out about it in a timely manner. And then then after the 2020 board election and the departure of the dissenting members, you know the story well about what happened with the chalice lighter coordinator in Denver. He started to solicit some of our longtime chalice lighter members in this church to fund the INUUC. And that violated, as Lynn has said, UUA bylaws that stipulated that a local church, the main church in an area, should be consulted when there's a breakaway faction, and that they never consulted us. So in short, the UUA has failed repeatedly to address our concerns about their lack of transparency, further leading us to question whether we should trust the current UUA leadership with our church endowment. The UUA, the UUCEF has been pretty good on socially responsible investing. You know, they have policies that prevent investments in guns and tobacco, and they pressure corporations to be more responsible on a variety of issues, including racial justice and global warming. But recently, Reverend Susan Frederick Gray has encouraged a group of so-called young adults to attend the investor meetings and pressure fund managers to act faster, like ASAP, to get out of all fossil fuel companies and banks. And this has led to some interesting dynamics, because some of the fund managers who also attend these meetings are saying they can't do that rapidly because they have a fiscal responsibility to the churches invested in the fund to deliver, you know, a steady rate of return, as they have been doing to us, which could be undermined by rapid disinvestments. So that's a dynamic going on now with the sort of more woke young people in the church. And they're very accusatory. In the last two meetings, they've been saying to the rest of us, you know, the member churches who are listening and the investment managers, that we all have blood on our hands because we're not, you know, we're not moving fast enough. And so it gives us some concern about what will happen in the future with this fund and the pressure that's being put on it right now. And when we started doing our research into other options for our fund, we found out that practically everybody these days uses socially responsible investing screens. Last summer, we met with Schwab, you know, the local discount broker, national discount broker, but has a local offices here. Dan Ekert has good relations with them, and we started with them. And they told us we could retain an independent advisor through the Schwab network, and that all or part of our endowment funds could be screened for socially responsible investing values. And Schwab connected us with two investor groups, Mercer Advisors, a big outfit with offices in Denver, Seattle, and here in Spokane, and Freestone Capital, which has offices in Santa Barbara, San Francisco, and Seattle. And we Zoomed with them, and both companies outlined their socially responsible investing practices and how they would help us choose investment options. They both charge annual management fees similar to what the UUCEF charges, about 1%. Our last interview was with the Seattle Foundation, which is a large community foundation founded in 1946. It has over $1 billion in assets. And they have a balanced pool endowment fund, which we would qualify for, and it manages $600 million in assets. And they also charge a 1% management fee, and they provide a 4% annual distribution to members of the balanced fund. And their fund gained 26.4% last year and has averaged 9.6% annually over the last decade. We also, as you can see from my report, interviewed Innovia Foundation in Spokane, but we quickly eliminated them from our list because it's almost impossible to get out of their fund after joining. And we wanted a fund that, if we weren't satisfied with, that we could leave. And the Seattle Foundation offers you have to give them 6 months notice, but you can leave the fund if you want to. And so I'm going to turn the legal part of this over to Mary Giannini, because she has had some important things to say about the legal risks of operating outside of 501c3, which the Seattle Foundation is, which led us to recommend them.
Okay. My concerns were primarily the exposure of UUCS in terms of responsibility for doing the investing. I thought both of the investment advisors that we met through Schwab would do a great job. The one problem that I have with that approach, as opposed to choosing a foundation setting like the UUCEF was initially, and like the Seattle Foundation is that technically, if we hold the money as UUCS, even if we put the money in a Schwab account, and even if we contract with investment advisors to manage it for us, ultimately UUCES is legally responsible for all the decision-making regarding the endowment funds. And that may be a theoretical risk. It may be a risk that really doesn't put the church at much exposure, but at least in theory, the church and the board and then the E-team, as the people who make decisions about the money, even though we delegate the actual investment to somebody else, will stay with us. I guess I have to say that my concern with that has mostly to do with the uncertainty around where the UUCS is in relation to the community, in relation to the entity that was created from the people who left, from things that have been said that indicate that at least some of those people have a view that the assets of UUCS, us, actually belong to the community and not to UUCS. And so some of my concern is just based generally on what it would mean if we as UUCS hold all that money as an entity and we invest it ourselves. Now we have, and Dan Ekrit is the perfect example. We have people in our church that are exceedingly talented at investing. And I have no doubt that people like that could make very wise decisions on our behalf. But my other concern is that Dan is probably not going to want to do that forever. There's probably a lot of other people that could do it, but they probably don't want to do it forever. Tom Mosier did it for quite a while, but he didn't want to do it forever. And so there's a natural process of change among the congregation. And right now we could say, yeah, we're a great bunch of people to manage the funds in the endowment fund if we have a broker working with us. But we don't know whether that's the case in the future. The one given about using a community foundation is that that entity takes the legal responsibility for managing that money. By the contract that we execute with them, it's their responsibility. They legally hold it in trust for us. They manage it, they're responsible for the management, and they're responsible for making distributions to us. And so the Seattle Foundation, or a community foundation, but particularly the Seattle Foundation, because that's the one we've talked to, ultimately is a fiduciary for us. And that benefits the church and the board and the team and the members for the decision-making about holding that money in trust. And that responsibility is not quite so exposed as it would be if the church itself held that money and invested it.
Mhm.
And so that in terms of risk and reward, risk and liability and exposure is kind of my analysis, a free form analysis of why I feel most comfortable that we chose to recommend using the Seattle Foundation as opposed to investing the money on our own, so to speak.
Say, Mary, I see 2 points. One, worried that our money might be challenged by the new congregation. And then 2, your concerns about where we should invest it, hopefully with the Seattle Foundation. And so it does seem to me that everyone in the new church resigned from this one. Doesn't that really protect us? When somebody resigns from an organization, what rights do they still have on that organization? I don't.
Well, I will tell you what has been told to me by several people who joined that new congregation. Their perception, whether it makes any sense or not, is that the assets of the UUCS are in essence Unitarian Universalist community assets. They don't in their minds think that those assets belong just to the UUCS church, but to the community of Unitarian Universalists who made that endowment possible initially. And it's been pointed out a number of times that a lot of the people who left UUCS had never made contributions to the endowment, but that isn't the point that these particular people are making. And I've only talked to a couple, 3 of them. They've approached me. I haven't gone out and investigated this issue on my own. It's that people have approached me and said, well, you're a lawyer. What do you think of this theory? What do you think of this theory that these assets really belong to the UUCS, the UU community in this area, and not just to UUCS? And that theory that these people have brought forth I think are kind of the basis for the indication that I've had from some people that, we should be selling the building and giving them half of the proceeds, or we should allow them to use the building because it really belongs to the community and not to the legal entity church. And whether I think those arguments make any sense, and I have to say, frankly, legally, I don't think they make a ton of sense. Those people are making those arguments. And I just have this kind of free-form anxiety about what that means, particularly if the UUA is out there supporting them.
As a member of the endowment team, could I make a couple of comments here?
Sure.
One, and Donna isn't here tonight, but Donna Borden has been involved with this ever since the start. Tom and I have been involved with it for a lot of years. I was off for a while and back on it now. But one of the things I should point out is that the original intention of the endowment teams in the past have been to use this as an addition to expanding our sole source of income, which has been pledges in the past, and was to try and widen the financial base for the church. And it has not been to give out to community. It has not been to fix the roof on the church or what have you. We have a deferred maintenance fund for that. And we try and put money in the budget every year for that. But it has been over all the years to give us an additional base of financial income for the church. And the people that have given to it we've always promised in the past that their money could be used in perpetuity. So we saved that principle, and the gain that we have gotten, whether it be in the national group or when we had it here locally, those gains, were based on what we had in addition, what we had felt that we could pass on to the church. And I think, what was it, like 26,000, something like that, a year or so ago. What it's added up over the years. The second thing, and I think that Mary covered it very well. Initially, we looked at the brokerage and so on, and I have always been concerned in the past, and I know the rest of the team has, all of us, that down the road, maybe 10, 15 years, whenever, somebody that might have a real strong personality in the church and has a real hot stock tip gets a hold of this fund and says we ought to buy such and such, and we lose a bunch of money. And one of the reasons that we all unanimously agreed to go to the Seattle Fund was, as Mary mentioned, it takes that liability away from the church. It takes a lot of the control away from the church, but it pretty much guarantees us an income every year that would do what we originally set out to do. And secondly, they have pretty good track record of what they're earning with it.
Mhm.
And it, in turn, also takes that liability, which would be on the church's shoulders, and puts it on the Seattle Foundation.
And it
So-
also gives us, in terms of investing in the community foundation, does give us protection from any church factions in the future that might want to dismantle
right.
the fund
That's
and
right.
use it for other purposes.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the other protective function of a community foundation.
Right.
And frankly, Mary's the lawyer, but I just can't see their claims holding up in any court of law. They've left the church. This church has an operating agreement right now with UUCEF. If you approve a change, we'll go ahead, or you will as the board, and sign an agreement with the Seattle Foundation, and they're just cut out of it. They're no longer members. They no longer have a claim. They may want to whine, but they have no legal claim to the endowment fund.
So
And
just,
very few of them have put into it. According to Donna, she's kept records.
Almost
Almost none of
them.
that breakaway group has
Right.
put money into this
Right.
fund.
That's right.
yeah, so having a truly devious mind, I'm always coming up with scenarios that I hope would never, we never have to contend with. But there is the question of getting the money out of the UUCEF, of which the UUA is the manager. And I could imagine when I'm in the middle of my worst nightmares, the UUA deciding to get into the mix and trying to sway how those funds get apportioned between our church and any other entities that they might be interested in. So we might, I'm just saying this, not that it's legally justified. I'm just saying there could be roadblocks, obstacles, and challenges along the way before we pull it off. Just saying.
Well, remember, we're operating under a legal operating agreement. And what that operating agreement says is that we can request $100,000 every 30 days to exit the fund. And, maybe they will be willing to give us our money, all of our money faster than that. But that's what our agreement says. And so, if they're going to stick by their agreement, that's the agreement.
If they're going to stick by the agreement, remember, we're dealing with the UUA.
Even better though, Dick, right? I mean, that's just even more of an incentive for us to make sure every church in this entire country knows that that's what's going on, just not just the Pacific Northwest or the churches that Craig's going to go to.
If there's any disincentive from their point of view, it would be that, it would become
It would-
known, yes.
It would be absolutely
Well-
that, and that. Oh, I'm sorry, Karen. Go ahead.
Well, and in my next step section of this, which you saw, if you endorse what we want to do, then we'll have to make the request of the UUCEF managers. Then we'll know how either reluctant or cooperative they are. But to invest in the Seattle Foundation, they have a minimum $250,000 investment. So if the UUCEF follows that, we could have our money out in say 3 months and be able to have 2.5 months, 3 months, and we'd have enough to start our Seattle Foundation fund while moving the rest of the money.
Tom?
Unmuted. Well, that raises a question. In my mind, say it takes us over this next year, the money dribbles out or comes out in a full amount. And in the budget exercise that's going to be taking place, an adoption of a budget for 2022 and 2023, say we agree that $26,000 will come out. How are you going to accomplish that in the process of this interim of switching from the UUCEF to that? And if we can't get $250,000, then we put that in a credit union? Have you made contingency plans for how to do that, and then how to get out the share of money that's going to go into the budget that's supposed to come from the endowment fund?
Right. The Seattle Foundation has told us that the easiest way out would be funds out to our church and then on to them, which means that if we say we get $100,000, we would put it in. I talked a little bit to Rebecca about this. We could hold it in a separate STCU account as a transfer portal. Is that what you understand, Mary?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so that in the first quarter of, from July, August, and September, we needed $7,000 or $6,000 to meet our obligations for income. Then you just draw that out of some money that was sitting in your credit union.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thanks.
So can I ask a question, Lynn?
Of course.
Karen and Mary, Dan too, maybe. A lot of what we've heard tonight are the reasons why we should leave the UUCEF and not invest it ourselves. Some of the risks, all the things laid out in your document about where we're going away from, but haven't heard a whole lot about how you chose the Seattle Foundation. Could y'all speak to that just a little bit?
Mary was the one who knew them initially. I mean, I already knew them. So why don't you describe that, Mary?
I had contact with the Seattle Foundation over the years, working with some other nonprofits in Spokane. I kind of started with the concept that it would be really nice if we could find a community foundation in Washington State. And we had, as Karen mentioned, talked with Inovia, our local community foundation, but felt that their policies were too restrictive about essentially owning our funds once we turn them over to the community foundation. So I looked at several of the other ones in the state. There are 3 or 4, and the Seattle Foundation is the largest one. It developed a lot of the socially responsible investing screens that the investment advisors we talked to are using here in Washington State. And they have, I guess I would have to say, a reputation for supporting liberal community causes. And then we started looking at their investment history. Karen mentioned the balanced fund that we would be eligible to put our money in, and it's done very well. The Seattle Foundation as a whole has done very well in terms of its community investments. And so we chose the Seattle Foundation because it was a Washington Foundation and because it was relatively flexible in terms of the ownership of the funds, our ability to take them out if we were unhappy with the Seattle Foundation process.
There is one other thing that I would add, and that is it's a really impressive board of directors and staff that they have. These are people at the very highest level, and they manage some very, 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 very large funds, including and then also they manage endowments for churches.
I have a couple of questions. One is taking Betsy's question just a little bit further, because we did hear all the reasons to take our funds out of the UUA. Are there any to keep it with the UUA? Any reasons that you looked at that said, well, if we didn't move it, here are the benefits to that?
Well, the one, I mean, it would be status quo. I mean, you know, we'd be operating, we'd get our money out. That was slightly more wiggle room if we kept it in at requesting between 4.5% and 6%. I think 6 is the maximum. They've been doing fairly well. It would be, they you know, the withdrawals are based on the last 13 quarters and of performance. So it would be the status quo as to it has worked fairly well for the church.
Yeah, probably the most dicey thing is the thing that Karen mentioned earlier. What's the internal dynamic between the UUA and the UUCEF fund managers? And it looks like there's some potential for problems going forward.
When we put our money in there originally, there seemed to be a separation, and State Street Investment was very much involved. They're a huge, big company. And recently, from everything I can see from what Karen's dug up and so on, there's more and more control taken over by the UUA board. And so if we left it there, that is very possible. They could say, well, this doesn't all belong to you. We can kind of give part of this over to this new church that's coming, putting itself together in Spokane. There's no law that says they couldn't do that I can see. And that's another reason why we want to get the thing moved, so we have control, or at least it belongs to us, not in a nebulous situation where somebody else could do whatever they want with it. And as she mentioned also, if this church disintegrated, our funds would be owned by the UUA. They would go to the UUA. And
Right.
I'm sure that a lot of people that gave to this over the years would not be happy about that.
Where would the funds go if the church dissolves and the money is in the Seattle Foundation? Then we decide where it goes, right? We follow the bylaws that say we donate this money to blah, blah, the way the bylaws work. Okay. Okay. And then my other question is, so it sounds to me like there really are no benefits to staying with the UUA. There just really aren't, or the UUCEF. There's no beneficial reason. It would just be so that you wouldn't have to do all the work that's about to befall the endowment team making all of this.
They have done a good job. I mean, Karen and I have both been impressed by the UUCEF advisors.
Yeah.
People that manage the investments for the UUCEF. Our concern has been more the way the UUA interacts with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
For instance, this has been a while ago and I don't know the whole outcome. And at one point, about 10 years ago, they elected to take $5 million out of the fund and give it to Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism, BLUU, which was fine. It was racial justice issues. but they didn't require any kind of fiscal accountability back, no reporting procedures or nothing. So none of us know what happened to their money. I mean, how did BLUU use it? And the argument that BLUU gave at the time was, well, that kind of accountability is white supremacy. You know, you just give us the money and let us do what we want with it. And so that is just one example where they've done something flaky in the past.
Interesting. Betsy?
I wanted to ask if this is a small thing, but we eliminated the Innovia, our local version of what the Seattle Foundation is, from the way you guys describe it, because of their restrictive exit criteria or plans or whatever it sounded like. So I guess my one, was that it? Was that the only reason? And I'm fine with that choice. I just think it would be probably good if we gave that information to them. We're a relatively small, probably even for Innovia, small amount of money, but give them that feedback that this particular part of your organization sent us to the West Side, or at least to an organization that's called the Seattle Foundation on the West Side. So
we didn't like it because if we put our money in, we couldn't get it out.
Right. I know. And I want you to tell them that, I guess,
Yeah, we will.
Dan. Okay.
When the board makes a decision, we're going to contact everybody that we didn't
Awesome.
opt to go with and tell them why, or, you know.
Okay, great. Thank you, Karen. That's my point.
Tom?
Well, I think it is necessary to point out, right now, under our bylaws, and Mary, you can correct me, but right now, if I'm wrong, right now, under our bylaws, the existing bylaws, we are tied to UUA. And if we dissolve our assets, we state in our bylaws that they go to the UUA.
Mm-hmm.
And the assets would have to be probably reasonably concluded would be our endowment fund. The new bylaws make a distinction, which is another reason to support and go ahead with this revised bylaws, because it changes the game plan as is set forth in our own documents.
Way to go, Tom. Thanks for that plug.
Mhm.
And for new bylaws revision. Hey, Tom, can I ask, I need an advisor question. I have an advisor. Should we have a motion on the floor about?
And definitely you need a motion to proceed.
Yeah, we should have probably done that before, right? But I never can remember when that should start. But at any rate, okay. So, and then we can continue this discussion with the motion on the floor, right? And second.
Yeah, what you've got is a report that's been given to you. And now you, in reaction to your report, you need to make a motion if you're going to take any action.
Okay. So I would like to move that the board accepts the recommendation of this endowment team and requests that they move forward with their with the plan that they are proposing for us.
And I second it.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
in the motion, just so I think you should clarify the removal of the funds from UUCEF and the plan to proceed to go with the Seattle Foundation. I think you should
To
mention
name those things.
where
Okay.
the flowing money is going.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks. So I move that the board accepts the recommendations to remove our endowment funds from the UUCEF and put them into the Seattle Community Foundation in the way that we can with the plan that they've laid out. I know it's not going to happen just like with a quick transfer of money, but with the plan. Okay.
Right. So, and I second the latter expanded, more complete version of the motion.
Okay.
Same motion.
Okay, thank you. So, and so now we can have more discussion and questions, right? That's.
I would caution us to move so quickly. I think it would be a good idea that we entertain this idea until the next board meeting so that we can get input from the congregation. Because I don't believe anybody in the congregation outside of the endowment team and us know that this is something the board is considering. And I would think I would vote against this motion so that we would take it up as consideration at the next board meeting and make our decision there, just so that everyone in the congregation will have a chance to weigh in and know that this is afoot. I know it's been speculated to be afoot, but now that we have the endowment team report, I think that we should allow one more board meeting to make the decision so that the congregation can weigh in. And that way, when we make the decision, we can say that the congregation is aware of what's going on. Otherwise, I think this is kind of a stealth move to operate so quickly. And that's my opinion.
May I say one thing about that? Maybe it's not widely known throughout the congregation, but we have at our last Legacy Society meeting, we convened the entire Legacy Society. When was that? It was in late last year.
September, October.
Yeah, and we polled them. There are about 60 members, and we described, staying with the UUCEF or seeking an alternative. And it was about 98% said that recommended that we leave the UUCEF. So we have polled people within the congregation that contribute, that are current contributors to the endowment, so just for your information.
And that's great, because now we can say to the congregation, the Legacy, we've gone through the procedure. The Legacy Committee has voted this way. They support this action. The board is gathering input, and we will vote at the next month on what to do with the funds. And I think that gives everybody a chance to weigh in.
Is this a new motion? Because I think, yeah, Tom?
Yeah, if Craig wants to amend the motion that's on the floor, Craig can propose an amendment and you all vote on the amendment, and it may be voted up or down, and then you vote on the main motion as you proposed the main motion.
Okay, so that it does sound like that Craig is amending my motion, because I would like to vote on it tonight.
No, I'm just saying that that would be why I will vote against the motion as written right now.
I would like
to be given more time, but
I would like to vote on it tonight, and I don't think there's anything nefarious at all about making the decision tonight. I'd like to do that.
I still have one more question about the Seattle Foundation, and then we can come back to this whether or not we're going to do it tonight. But are all the investors of the Seattle Foundation little kind of corporations like we are, or are they individuals? Do individuals invest in a foundation like this, or I think I just am having trouble wrapping my head around a foundation as an investor. I'm just so used to something like Schwab or like the Mercer account and the Freestone account that you've described.
Most of the people invested in the fund, I believe, and I'm not 100% sure on this, but I believe are nonprofits, other nonprofits, churches, nonprofits, largely in Western Washington. But and I don't know, Mary, do you know? Do they also? I think they also have some high, like, what do they call them? High income individuals, but I think that's a different fund.
Typically, community foundations will have donor advised funds. There are a lot of nonprofit organizations that invest, but there are also donor advised funds. There are family foundations that contribute their money to the community foundation, primarily for tax reasons.
Sure.
And there may be some high income individuals too, but it's much more typical that even an individual would invest first in a family foundation, which then invests in the community foundation. So I'm guessing they're mostly nonprofit.
Okay.
Community foundation members or family members.
Okay. That makes sense to me. Thank you.
may I make a comment? One that we have not made an application yet to the Seattle Fund, so it could be that there might be something that Mary would run into later. But I would suggest that you at least vote tonight to get our money out of the National Fund, the UUA. And also, I get a little concerned if we, we've spent almost a year on this thing. And if the word gets out, that we're going to pull money out, there may be a whole bunch of new problems pop up from the separated group here. In other words, I think we ought to get this moving as fast as possible. And we do have ways of changing if we find some problem at all with either the application to the Seattle Foundation or what it represents in any way. We have time to do that, but we at least made the decision to pull our money out of the UUA and get the process started.
Well, and
better.
I think I would also add to that, Dan, and in response to Craig's concerns, is that between now and the next board meeting, we're not going to hold a vote with the congregation about this. And we don't have a way to say we've talked to all the right people and we've heard everybody's feedback, and so I don't know between now and then, how would we, that would not make a difference for me personally as to how, I just wouldn't ever trust that I'm going to be speaking to the right person to get the right information from a congregant to give me a change in my way of whether or not I want to vote to do this. So, so that's what I guess that's my feedback about that. Betsy, did you have your hand up or?
No, I was clapping.
Oh, you were clapping.
I was clapping to applaud what Dan said, which was we still have opportunity, even if we get the ball rolling tonight with this motion, Lynn, that you have on the floor, which I think I would vote for as well, with Catherine, with you, Lynn, and to get started, we have a chance to make adjustments in the process, because we haven't even applied to Seattle, like Dan was saying. Yes, something could come up, but it's important that we start removing. That is, I think, crystal clear, and a year in the making. We've been working on it for a year, like you said, Dan, I think. So it's time to move. Let's start getting it out for sure and start our application to the Seattle Foundation. Let's go.
What other questions, comments?
I would just like to say that the endowment team was elected by the congregation, and it's a representative democracy, and I don't really think that we have to wait to move forward.
Yeah, one other thing, which is, oh yeah, I'm okay. One other thing, which is just interesting, is that it was about a decade ago that we decided to go into the UUCEF. And I was around a decade ago. I had no awareness whatever that was going on, and which is fine. And I think that the UUCEF has served us well in the interim. It's just interesting that in the current circumstances, this seems to be much more charged. But I think that, as Candace said, that's how representative democracies work. I mean, people are voted into office to go through, weigh the various alternatives, come to their best understandings, take votes, and if the congregation doesn't like, they have the opportunity to replace us as terms expire and other positions emerge that if they decide they want to follow, they can pursue those.
I see Jane Bowen here, and I know she's been very concerned about this. I wondered if Jane might want to say something.
You're muted, Jane.
You're muted.
You see, oh, do you see down in your left-hand corner, down in the very left bottom, the little microphone, Jane?
Are you able to unmute everybody so she can speak? Because everybody is muted, I think.
I can ask her to unmute.
Do that because that should pop up something on her screen.
While you're doing that, from a parliamentary procedure standpoint, if you can ask if there are any other comments as the chair, and if there are no other comments, you can either call, make sure there's a vote or just say that you declare it to be approved. So there is a way to expedite it if you all have said what you need to say.
Jane need to move her mouse around the screen to see those icons for Zoom?
Let's see if I can unmute her from. Darn, it doesn't let me mute or unmute her. I mean, it would allow me to mute her, but I can't unmute her.
From left-hand corner, Jane.
She's figured out how to stop video.
Yeah.
She's hitting the buttons at random.
Just right next to that video there. Oh, you're back on video. So right next to that, Jane, on the left, farther left.
Further left.
Should be a microphone.
There you go.
You go. You're okay. You're on, Jane.
Oh, nope, we can't hear you.
Yeah, her mic is not plugged in, or the volume is turned down to 0 or something.
Yeah. Do you know how to turn up your volume, Jane? The volume on your speaker? It might just be that. Nope, remuted.
I'll give her a call. Why don't I call her and see if
Okay.
maybe I can report on if she wants to say something.
Important to hear from Jane because she's been such an important part of this for a long time, so.
Yeah.
I don't want us to be unmuted. Please don't do.
She's not picking up.
When has she got the phone by her ear now?
Oh.
Now she's putting it down in perplexity.
Oh, dear. Sorry. Let's see. Try her again here.
Oh.
if anybody's talking to her on the phone, you might try speakerphone to see if that'll come through.
Yeah, they made it.
Did you want to say anything about the vote tonight? Do you want the board to go ahead and vote? Okay, I'll tell them that then. She said she did want to tell you that she think it's time to vote and move the money back into our control.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
Well, any other comments, questions from anybody? Okay, so so we do need to vote, right? Because Craig's not ready to vote, or Craig doesn't want to vote, or Craig wants to vote a certain way. So, right, so we just need to vote then.
Okay,
So
this is voting on your motion, correct?
Yes, so if you are in favor of taking the recommendations of the endowment team tonight and the endowment team moving forward, then would you raise your hand as board member?
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you are opposed to that, 1. So that vote passes 5 to 1.
Okay, and Craig would have the privilege, if he wishes to be identified as a negative vote, and that'd be up to him.
You want to be identified?
Yeah,
Okay.
if it could be identified that I wish to delay the decision for a month, but I'm not against the principle at all.
And that's the kind of thing that would go in the minutes, that someone who voted against or for it, for that matter, wishes to be identified.
Okay. Great. So it is 7:49. First, before we just say goodnight and end this meeting, I do really want to thank Karen and Mary and Sue and Dan and Dick and all of you who are on that endowment team. Who did I miss?
Donna.
Donna, she's at fire practice.
Oh, good for her. Good for her. Yeah, the report was so clear and so helpful, and I know that there's been a lot of time and effort and work going into this. I know you've had a lot of meetings and a lot of financial meetings with financial companies, and that is not easy, and all of those things. So your efforts are deeply appreciated, and we know that we are in very good hands with your wise decisions. So thank you very much for all of that work.
Thank you.
Yes.
I don't have anything else on the agenda this evening, guys. So our next board meeting is scheduled for March 23rd from 6 to 8 p.m. And unless there's anything else, I think we can call it an evening.
Yeah, I just say that now the adventure gets interesting.
Yes. Yes. It'll be interesting. It will be interesting. And so I would imagine, Karen, I guess I should say that we'll get further updates as things progress, right, at board meetings as to where we're at.
Yes, and when we approach the UUCEF, we might want to have you there as board chair. You know, when we tell them we want to get our money out and set the process up, since you just took this vote tonight.
Okay. Well, that's pretty exciting. Good.
Yeah.
Adventure begins.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.
May I, before we close?
Yeah.
So we're going to have a budget summit on March 2nd from 1 to 3. That's the Wednesday.
Yeah.
So just want to make sure anyone who wants input on the budget, please attend.
Yes, good. And I will be there, and Candace and Betsy are maybes that they'll be there too. And I'll let Rebecca know that. So,
Okay.
oh, yes, Tom.
Oh, speaking of the budget summit and the endowment team people here, has it been decided how much the endowment team will be able to commit to the next budget cycle or the next fiscal year?
Donna said the number 26,000 is, I think that's the number. But we haven't voted that that's the exact number, but that's around 26,000 is what is being discussed.
Okay.
I would think maybe we shouldn't do so much out of it because of the impending Ukraine war might tank the stock market.
Yeah, it's already started.
Yeah. Okay.
And thank you, not only member of the Endowment team. I mean, they've done a lot of work. Karen has done a lot of research. And thank you, board members, for all you're doing here, getting things done. So.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you.
All right.
Good night.
Everyone, have a good night.
Night.
Night, everybody.
Good night.